tell me about the rig, said Chris to Ben. Like what I needs to know, man. Like, what's my new job again? Like, roastabout. I'm a roastabout. Do you like it, sis? He kept elbowing me, making me laugh. So what else do I gotta know, he asked Ben. What else do I gotta know, man? How do I be a roasty? Here's what you need to know, said Ben. You keep the hell out of the way. Keep the hell out of the way, said Chris. Yeah, okay, I can do that. See? So Benny's getting it. I told you he's getting it. What are you worried about? Now here, bugger. Here's how you know what's gonna be done, okay? If it moves, you grease it. If it don't move, you scrub it. And that's it, bud. That's the life of a roustabout. You have a grease gun or a bucket of diesel dangling from your wrist at all times. And you gotta be going somewhere at all times. The best place is that comfy spot over there behind the mud tank. Warm as toast when it's cold and shady when it's warm. Yeah, I thought it lots of stuff curled up behind that mud tank over there. She's getting like your mother, Ben, I said, running on like a brook. He busted at a laugh, his arm grazing mine with each sway of the truck. Tongue like a machete, he said softly. And then he was pointing out the window to Chris. See that jack pine over there, bud? You ever see pine like that? And Chris leaned within an inch of the windshield, the beak of his cap shading his eyes as he took in the giant pine flanking the roadsides. Big, eh, he said. Jesus, man, that's big pine. What do you say, sis? What's the matter? Not saying much. Changing your mind, aren't you? Told you not to come. Told you not to come to the rig. Girls shouldn't be on the rigs. Anyway, want us to take you back? Getting sick, aren't you? You're getting sick, aren't you? Her sick. She always gets sick on bumpy roads, he said to Ben. I'm not getting sick, Chris. Too late, he starts barfing. He said, oh, Chrissy, please. Chrissy, Jesus, don't call me Chrissy here. My name is Chris. Chris with a K, okay? Chrissy, oh, Jesus, don't call me Chrissy like that. And oh, man, look at that over there. And he was leaning towards the windshield, pointing at a bald eagle gliding overhead. Near bursting through the windshield with excitement, like when we were youngsters combing the beach, and he would burst ahead sometimes from his eagerness to see what new thing lay just ahead. A sunfish, a dead shark, a pretty bottle cast ashore during the night. Oh man, wouldn't father love them birds, he said. Pot of gravy is what Dad would see, I said. And then pine, they'd make for a fine cord of wood. Yep, that's our dad, said Chris. But tell me again, Ben, man. Tell me again, what's my job? What do I gotta do when I get there? You haven't told me anything yet. I'll tell you what you gotta do, bugger, said Ben. The first thing you learn is who's who, okay? So you don't go telling the wrong man to bugger off. You got that? Yeah, I got that. But so what are they like, all them roughnecks? Like, you know, what are they like? They're like babies, said Ben. They're all pretty as babies. Babies, said Chris. And Push is the prettiest. Push is the boss, the tool push, the biggest job on the rig. Lovely man, Push. Got hemorrhoids hanging down to his knees. Gets a bit mean sometimes when you got hemorrhoids hanging like cauliflower down to your knees. And you call him Push because he's a pushover, right? That's Chris. Ben grown, greener than the spring pasture. Tool push, boys. That's his job. He's a tool push, and the rig's his life, and he don't want it getting blown to hell. And that's what happens if you're not doing your job. If you're not watching them gauges, she can blow. One thing you always keeps in mind is there's a whole bloomin' forest buried beneath us, and it's been fuming and fermenting and smoldering since T-Rex, and with no vent. The second we punctures through with a drill bit, you be prepared, buddy, because there'll be one Jesus badass bit of gas bursting up through them pipes like a cyclone. And if you can't hold her back, if you can't control her, she's gonna blow, and you're gonna blow, and every cocksucker snoozing over there behind that mud tank is gonna blow. You just think of a whale coming up for a blow beneath your dory. Well, that's a soap bubble compared to that gas bubble bursting up through yours. You got that, bugger? Ben stopped laughing at the silence in the truck. Gee, nice place you brought us, Ben. I said, she's not just gonna blow up, would she? Oh yeah, sure. Drills into a bed of gas, she's gonna blow. But hey, listen, sis, we're not gonna hit that bed of gas, so you just keep your mind on peeling spuds for Cook. You got that? And you and Ben reached an arm around the back of the seat and grabbed Chris's nape as he would the scruff of the dog. You got all that, bugger. Yeah, I got that, said Chris. He fixed his cap straight and he rolled in his window and he whistled towards the long prairie grass fringing the roadside and squinted against the wind tunneling through the cab of the truck and flapping at our faces. And we topped a knoll, the road gashing through the thicket ahead, oozing with mud. It was darker here, the sun obscured by a thick wood that suddenly opened onto a wide open field that was plowed and gouged and scabbed with scraps of sod. And looming before us was the rig. This platform rose 15 to 20 feet above ground and was crowded with tanks and sheds all painted a bloodied red beneath their layers of mud and dust. Diesel engines and generators shuddered and rumbled and screamed over a jungle of machinery that swung and hoisted and spun beneath that tall column of the derrick rising bone white into the fading glow of sundown. And I held my nose against the stench of diesel and ground rot filtering through the truck. "She's Push's baby," said Ben. "Her bottom was a big stink, but as rigs go, he keeps her cleaner than mother's floors. You can't stop that squalling, though. The screaming jimmies," he said, as Chris raised his window, softening the deafening whine of the rig. "You got 4 screaming jimmies, motors. They're screaming and roaring all the time. And you got the pumps, those big piston pumps that are bump, 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 bump all the time, shaking and rattling the walls, the ceiling, the floor. Everything shakes with the pumps, and the jimmies are shaking and screaming. You can't hear a damn thing most times. You can't hear your own teeth chattering. And gee, Ben, a real nice place you brought us." Don't worry about it," he said. "What do you think, Bud? What do you think, Chris?" And Chris was leaning towards the windshield. He was staring with trepidation at the rig, at the machinery, tracking the movement of the men. He sensed me watching him. He felt my worrying. Popping open the truck door, he hopped outside. "Where you going?" I called after him. "I'm going to find me a bucket of grease, sis," he said. "You worry, Pa, okay? I'm going to have them jennies humming like larks before bedtime." "Jennies? Did he call them jennies?" said Ben. "Jimmies, boy, Jimmies. Jesus, boy, don't go talking around here until you get the language figured out, okay?" But Chris had shut the truck door, and he was stood staring at the rig in bits, as though it were too big to take in all at once. He glanced back at the truck, an eagerness in his eyes and a grin chewing the corners of his mouth. One day from home, and the pangs of guilt regarding our father had loosened the restraints from my brother's face. Perhaps it would all be fine, I thought. I tucked worry aside. That night I was unable to sleep. I pressed my face against the coolness of the wire mesh screening my window. I looked to the rig lit up ghastly yellow by flood lamps that scorched through the dark like fallen suns. I took myself to bed and slept fitfully to quick squalls of rain on my window and the distant screaming of the jimmies motoring. Finally, I fell into that dark hole of the night, but the jimmies followed me, their screams sounding through my dreams. And I was a girl again, running through the woods behind Father's house and finding him standing there before the screaming mouth of the old sawmill, and he was shouting to me, and his eyes were filled with terror, but I couldn't hear him over the jimmies. I couldn't hear his words, and I couldn't get closer, my legs barely moving as I struggled and struggled to run. And then I tripped, ripping my knee over the ragged edge of a rock, and awakened to the ongoing screams of the jimmies sounding from that rumbling metallic beast across the clearing. Thank you. Thank you.